Hello everyone, can you hear me? The mic's working, that's good. I had a bit of a history of bad mics. Welcome everyone to our next panel, which the theme is STOs and digitizing assets. It's my pleasure to invite my panelists up right now who will introduce themselves in much better than I would. So please come and join me on the stage. Yeah, come on, round of applause. You don't have to sit by the pictures, although it'd be kind of nice and neat. So thank you for your time. Yeah, okay. So we're here to talk about STOs and digitizing assets. But before we do that, I'd like you all to introduce yourselves, talk about what you're working on, and 20 seconds each, please. So be as brief and concise as possible. We'll start with you.
Hi everybody, my name is Ulli Spankowski. I'm head of digitization at Börse Stuttgart Group, and we are in Germany the only financial institutions where you can buy cryptocurrencies currently at the moment, and we're building the complete ecosystem for a digital asset exchange, which will be launching this summer, and it's a regulated MTF under MiFID II.
Thank you very much.
Hi everybody, I'm Matthieu Lucchesi and I work for Gide 255. So Gide 255 is a team dedicated to innovation in an international law firm. And what we do is that we work for our clients on their projects relating to innovation, and we provide strategic advice, legal structuring advice, and we build with them their advocacy strategy to make sure that the regulation that is applicable to their projects in innovation, and especially in blockchain and crypto, are appropriate and make sense for them and their business.
Spoken like a true lawyer. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pascal Lauffer. I'm the CEO of Onbrane. Onbrane is a negotiation and insurance platform. So basically we are between large corporations in needs of funds and investors willing to invest in those corporations. So we facilitate all those transactions.
Hi everybody, I'm Omri. I'm the chief blockchain scientist for the eToro group, and we build a lot of the products we build around this space, like the tokenized asset mentioned by Yoni yesterday, and a lot of the infrastructure.
And hi, so I'm the only woman. I'm Céline Moille. I'm also a lawyer, and we have offices in France, in Singapore, and in Malta, and we do ICO and STO and all legal stuff for clients who want to use blockchain and crypto.
Still doing ICOs?
Yeah.
Okay. Some things don't change. So my name is Aylon Morley. I'm part of Chain Accelerator. I'm head of the global expansion program. So let's get into it. STOs, a lot of hype last couple of months, somewhat subsided recently. Let's start off with what are STOs? We'll give you a softball question to begin with. And what's actually the difference between digitized securities and STOs? Anyone feel free to answer that. We'll start with you, Omri.
Okay, I think there are a lot of lawyers around me, so I'll let them explain STOs way better than I can. But what we are super excited is tokenized securities, which really allow people to hold assets and to really control them. I think yesterday Alex Mashinsky was here and sitting and discussing a little bit about interest rates that we invest in banks, give them our good dollars or whatever assets, and we get zero in returns. They use fractional reserve and sell them around. And we believe that by actually tokenizing these assets, give the clients the control. We do the same as what happened with Facebook with data. So now we know that our data is used. Now we know that our assets are used to be leveraged by these institutions. And if we want to allow for it, we should be asked. And if we do, we should get share of it. So we tokenize this stuff, and we think this is really the greatest transfer of value, is really to give people control over the funding. And this is much more into tokenized securities, and I will let my colleagues here discuss security tokens.
The Internet of Value actually realized, finally.
I totally believe in it, because really it doesn't make sense to me, right, that if I put $50,000 in a bank account, the bank lends $500,000, make, say, 4 or 5% on that, and I get 0.1% interest rate or negative interest rate. It doesn't make sense to me, and most people are not aware of it, and they wonder how do they pay $10 a month to the banks, and the bank has the nicest offices in town, right? This is why, and if they want to be transparent about it, if they're willing to share that with others, I think it would make better sense.
Fair enough.
Yeah, if I may add something. For me, from a legal perspective, I like to think about security tokens as any assets registered on a blockchain and which has the same characteristics as a financial instruments. It's broad enough, but I think it covers all the situations, and also it makes sense from the legal point of view, because for any situation that matches this criteria and these circumstances, then the same legal requirements will apply. All the requirements applicable to financial instruments will be applicable to that kind of assets. And I think that this is important for people willing to launch activities involving security tokens. Because I know that sometimes people make a difference between tokenized securities or crypto assets, which at the end of the day, turn out to have the same characteristics as financial instruments. And then the discussion is, what are the requirements applicable to it, and should we distinguish that? As of today, for the regulators, at least in Europe and to my knowledge, in most of the jurisdictions, the approach is really to say, if the tokens or if the crypto assets have the same characteristics as financial instruments, then the full financial regulation should apply. Then the question is, does it make sense to apply that, or should the regulation be amended? But that's another topic that is currently, by the way, discussed, for example, at the European level.
But you have to be compliant all the time. You have to be compliant.
So you have to adhere to all the rules, or you're instantly in trouble. So that would be the instant differentiator between the ICO days and the STO days. Yeah. Okay.
But from a very practical use, the question that you asked, so securitized stock versus digital stock, basically it's the same. The only thing, it's not a piece of paper that's not there anymore. So we're just talking about zeros and ones, and that's it. It behaves the same way. But an STO, for me, the particularly interesting point about an STO is that I can basically finance everything. I can finance projects, I can finance art, I can finance real estate. I can basically make my apartment available and create a token on it, and the token has a particular, let's say, interest rate or whatever on it.
It's interesting, you said property. Something about real estate attracts me to this field because of the releasing the dividends. You can get daily dividends, I think that's true, and fractionalization of ownership, so that's a very interesting avenue to pursue. Let's talk about the STO framework. What kind of STO frameworks are we seeing here in this market space? Pascal, do you have thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, just maybe to go back one step, because this is, I think we've talked about a lot about the legal aspect of it, right? I look at it more like a tool and what we could do with that tool. And clearly the idea is binding a digital token to an asset, whatever the asset is. Then there is different regulations in different places that will come to play. But in the end, you buy a token with an asset, and then that token can have a whole full life on the blockchain. And that's the power of it, right? Once you have done that, you've changed the world. The legal will catch up, will change, will make it work, right? I mean, ICO, STOs, and there'll be others. But this is really what this is about, right? It's changing the world through a way to simplify something which is so complex today, through a simple idea which is binding a token with an asset. That's it.
So following on that, obstacles. What are the obstacles that we're seeing at the moment for mass adoption? Because the biggest elephant in the room is liquidity.
Yeah. I mean, so for us, and so we're building that platform to allow people to talk to each other and negotiate contracts, right? Then we create that contracts, and once you've done that, well, what do you do next? And the problem we see is, if you try today to go to banks or to go to large corporations and sell them a smart contract framework, they look at you like if you're an alien, right? They're not ready yet to embrace all those changes of technology, which is one problem. The second problem is, if you're on a blockchain by yourself, you're going to be very lonely, right? So it's really a question of migrating an entire ecosystem on the blockchain. So I think what's even more important than what the technology allows you to do is how do you actually bring an entire ecosystem to that blockchain. And the way we do it, we basically just start by solving some small, obvious digital problems, right? You cannot talk to each other, so I'll help you do that. And and slowly, progressively, we migrate more and more on the blockchain, more and more of the ecosystem on the blockchain, until the blockchain becomes the ecosystem. So to answer your question, it's really the big hurdle is adoption. It's really adoptions and migrating to
Omri, you have a point?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I like what Pascal mentioned, but I think, and also to connect it to what other people says here, right? I think obviously regulation is important and need to follow people and what they need to, but the main thing is really to provide something of value to the end clients, like create a simple platform for them that could be very complex on the regulatory side and other stuff, but liquidity comes when someone is interested in your product. If your product is a $15 million company that is launching and you offer $2 million invested in it, almost by definition, it's a very small market. And just to follow up on that, this is why we're so bullish on tokenized assets and tokenized securities, because we know people are interested in Apple stocks. We know people are interested in Nasdaq. I'm interested in it. And providing it on one platform with the other crypto asset, we think it's bringing a lot of value. So, and to connect the thing together, right? The crypto market today is what, $180 billion-ish? I mean, the traditional market, 144 trillion. The derivative market, way bigger than that. So I think we shouldn't tell people what to do, but try and see what they like and really shoot to that. That's my opinion.
But aren't we all a little bit drinking from the Kool-Aid here? Aren't we all sort of, everyone's agreeing that this is the way forward, but I see no excitement about it. I see no hype. I see the retail who plumped up the market so far have kind of zero interest in it because no, you're shaking your head.
I disagree. The retail part has really a lot of interest, but you ask the obstacles. How can you do it? Where are the platforms? Where can you trade it? Where's the regulatory framework that allows you to do it? Plus, it only gets interesting, or it mainly gets interesting, if large players are coming into the space, and for them, it's completely not possible to do it if you don't have a regulatory framework. I don't know really how it is in France. In Germany, it really sucks. I mean, you can do an STO, but you cannot trade because we don't have the law that allow you to trade your STO as you could trade a stock.
So it's stagnant by definition.
And currently, this is changing. I mean, the regulator and the government, they are working on it. But of course, we're at the very beginning. So it will take a while. And on the other side, the institutional players and the issuers. We're talking to a lot of blue chip companies. They have so many ideas of issuing projects, not only tokenizing stocks. I think tokenizing stocks is interesting, but on the issuer part, they are interested in much more. They don't want to sell their company because that's what they already do. They want to sell projects, they want to sell lines of products, whatever. This is what they're interested in.
You see this the next big wave. This is the next big thing in your mind?
This is what we are experiencing.
Okay. There was a talk yesterday in the French stage, and the speaker asked everyone to put their hands up if they believe that STOs are the next big thing. There was not one person put their hand up. Why do you think that is?
Well, if I may say something. Today, for example, security tokens issuance is possible in France. We have a framework dedicated to that allows that for a certain type of securities. And we see actual projects doing that. So it's true, these are not tradable securities, but there are still use cases today, for example, in the asset management. And I think that the excitement about that will come when people will realize the benefit of it. For example, in asset management, when you tokenize the shares in a fund, you can create a direct relationship between the fund and the asset management company and the investors. That did not exist so far, and it's big because it really changes the way funds are distributed and the interaction between investors and asset management. And when people will realize the benefit of it, I'm sure they will start to change. And that's why, as you were saying, we need some changes, including in the law, to make sure that it's also accessible to tradable securities. And finally, it's also related to the question of liquidity that we were referring.
I think Omri's got something to say about that.
Yeah, I just want to say, I don't like to come and say when people realize something, right? Who am I to know what people realize and when? Definitely there is value in services and low services around these STOs, and there is a use case for it. But what are the really huge use cases, right? You mentioned before tokenizing art, tokenizing real estate. These are huge market. There is huge use cases to it. Another
What are the use cases, by the way? Let's unpack that a little bit.
I mean, it's very basic. I'm not going to say anything that anybody here haven't thought about 10 times, but having the possibility to invest in a fraction of a real estate in a very transparent way and tokenize, again, with control of the asset, I think is interesting. I'm interested in that. Again, I don't follow a small German company or anywhere in the world, France, it's not, that is going to raise $10 million and I'm going to spend the time to learn into them. And I wouldn't expect that company to have an unbelievable liquidity, because why? And I wouldn't say I need to educate the people. We have some ideas of what they want. Yeah, real estate is interesting. Almost everybody in the world, to some extent, invest in real estate. We know currencies are, to some extent, interesting. We know a lot of other products. We know I'm speaking again about tokenized assets. We know that big, cheap, blue chip companies are interesting. And these are the huge markets. This is a very segmental stuff that will grow, but it's really, there is a huge thing here and something small there, and I think probably the big things will happen first, maybe.
Céline?
Yeah, but it was the same first step for each company was the digitalization, and now it could be the tokenization. It's the same problem as a law firm. First step was digitalization, and now why not the tokenization and use blockchain and maybe use crypto and be paid by crypto? So it's the same for everybody. So you have a lot of use cases. You can use for real estate. You can use blockchain for everything. But everybody needs to try to do something for that, And we can try as a law firm. We can try also to use blockchain and to use smart contract, and why not to use tokenization? But we have to do that if you want to find new clients, and it's the same for real estate and for everything. For me, it's the same for everybody. So there is a lot of use cases, but we have to do that.
Pascal?
Yeah, and I think you have to see it from the two sides of the token, right? There is the what the token is going to enable before, like tokenizing a building, a painting, a project, and then being able to share it, do a lot of things which we just can't do today because it would be too time consuming, which is one thing. And then there is the after. Once you have that token, you could put that token on the blockchain and simplify tremendously the after trade, right? Today there is so many back offices, reconciling information, systems running it, failing, and that power of simplification is probably 100x between what we have today. So the value for society in both sides of the token are just tremendous. So now revolution of that size don't come overnight, right? And that's why we just want to see everything today. Okay, step by step.
All technology or pioneering technology is opaque on arrival and in retrospect inevitable. So you're right, maybe in 5 years it'll be different. But at the moment, the biggest pushback, and I'm actually invested in STOs, just to clarify, but as a pushback, there doesn't seem to be any real secondary markets, any real issuance platforms. I mean, we have T0s in your harbors, but is there any traction you're seeing in this market at the moment that seems significant, or breadcrumbs of some sort? Feel free.
Yes, we're building it. Yeah.
You're doing it?
Yeah, we're building it. It will launch this summer, and eventually the first step is...
What exactly are you building without too much selling?
We're building a digital asset infrastructure, first for trading cryptos, but of course as soon as we have the regulation for security tokens. I like crypto. I'm invested in crypto and it's fun.
In the right place.
But to be honest, the industry is not looking for crypto, the financial industry. They're mainly looking for security tokens. They want to finance things because this is what they have done for the last, I don't know how many 100 years. So security tokens is the thing. We just need the regulatory framework and we need to have the platform. We need the issuers. The issuers are there. They're thinking about it. They have projects. and then we have to have the platform. And we're not the only ones. I don't want to do any marketing commercials. So we in Germany, there's another exchange building one. There's one in Switzerland. The thing is, you need to build it regulated. You need to have a framework around it that institutional investors feel comfortable with.
Someone asked me yesterday a quite blunt question, which is, how do I do an STO? So how would I start? I want to do an STO right now. How do I do it?
We have to ask the lawyers.
I have one example. I have a client here, Montessori Worldwide, and we are doing an STO for this client. They have nurseries in France, okay? And they want to open nurseries everywhere in the world. So they use STO, and they want to do that. So, and as a lawyer, I say, okay, I have to find a solution for you, because we have two problems. We have one technological problem, of course. We have to tokenize something. We have to tokenize nurseries. It's just crazy. And second problem, we have
tokenizing nurseries?
Yeah, it's a kind of investment. It's just for investors. So
the business side of things.
Yeah.
Not tokenizing the children.
Not nurseries, of course. Children, no.
There should be limits.
Not
really.
at this time. Maybe in a few years, but not this time. But we have to tokenize the investment. And second problem was of course, the regulation, to find the good way and the good legislation. And of course, you want to be compliant. It's a big problem to be compliant with European legislation, maybe French legislation. So, but it's possible.
Without putting the audience into a coma, how do we get compliant?
We use Malta. At this time, we use Malta.
Malta?
Yeah, and the VFA agent. At this time, I hope at the end of the year we can do that with the French ecosystem, but we use Malta. Yeah.
But it's already possible,
it's possible
in France.
Yeah.
It's true that it's possible on a certain type of securities. So mainly today it's on non-listed securities. This is what you were referring to, but it's possible today. You have a full dedicated framework, and it's true. I mean, the choice of jurisdiction in Europe is something that is up to the client. But it's true that, and you were mentioning that if you want to, or you, I don't know, if you want to reach out to institutional investors or people who are regulated, it is true that sometimes, at least that's the feedback that we've got from our clients, it's sometimes easier to interact with that kind of stakeholders if you make the choice of being located in a jurisdiction such as France or Germany.
Pascal?
Yeah, so you ask, is there excitement around that? And I think something to look at is, I mean, this is what we've seen.
Sorry to interrupt you. There was a lot of excitement, and it had that kind of flavor. And again, I'm sorry to be so generic about it, but it's from a kind of my perspective, I heard a lot about people, all the people that used to sort of, and I hate using this term, but FOMO into like ICOs, and now FOMOing into STOs, and that worries me, because that shows an immaturity that I find disturbing. But on the other hand, like everything, it's a process, so I understand.
Yeah, and I'm not looking at STOs just that. I'm talking about asset tokenization, right? And STOs being part of it. And you see that the big money, so the big firms, the big banks, the big exchange right now are investing in companies doing just that. And the project being funded right now are really interesting projects. I mean, we started moving from just that wave of we need to try what the blockchain can do and all those proof of concept, and it's not that anymore. It's really moving to the next step, and the big boys are here. So it means that banks now understood
the
that
big boys are here. Well, what are they doing?
They're investing in those companies, so they're not doing it directly, but you'll see that companies with which are specialized in developing asset digitalization framework are being, just saying we've seen recently a big investment for the LSE in a company called Nivora, for example, which is doing just that, right? So, and it's just one example of, out of many. So money is moving there. The banks are saying it's coming, and it's going to transform the banks totally.
Omri, you have a point?
Yeah, I just want to follow up actually on what Ulli said before. I think we also really believe in offering regulated ways to people trade these things, and we're working actively on it. We're also regulated. And I think that, taking it back to what you mentioned, I do think that in order to get the mass adoption, we really need to shoot at the big things, and the big thing are custodian solution to make people feel well around the money, And tokenizing, the thing we all want. And I want to also ask you, challenge you, Aylon, because you're challenging us all the time. You mentioned, shooting back at you. You mentioned before that you asked yesterday, or there was a ask in the crowd, who think STOs are the future, and nobody raised hand. But ask people, who want to invest in a Mona Lisa, right? Hold a piece of it. Who want to have piece of, of Versailles Castle, I am, seriously, I would love to put $1,000 in each of them. I think it's a great, both for sport, but also I think it's probably a great investment.
I was just, don't shoot the messenger. I was telling you just what I heard, but,
I didn't mean to shoot the messenger.
No, but you're absolutely right. It's a very valid point.
What I mentioned is that I'm not that excited about an STO $15 million company. I'm super excited about tokenizing great things. And I think we have great things. We know there are interest in them.
Do you see blue chips being the biggest thing here, or is it hard to quantify at the moment?
It's a really good question, and we think a lot about it. I'm sure Ulli and the rest of the guys
Ulli,
here
would you like
think.
I think, as I mentioned before, tokenizing a stock is nothing new because it's already there. Okay, you have a really huge advantage because you don't have the post-trade side anymore. And what Omri said before, you can actually own it yourself in your own custodian, in your own wallet if you really want to, which is brilliant. So you cut out the middlemen, and that's great. But to be honest, I'm completely with Omri with tokenizing new things that could not been financed before in a way, and big projects as well. It could also be crowd projects, but they can be really, really big. And this is for me the thing that's really interesting. But of course, the first step might be tokenized blue chips. Yes.
Do you think that would sort of usher in an age of mass adoption, instant liquidity, of course?
I mean, we already see that there are a couple of companies providing digital stocks. What they do, they just buy the real stocks, then they tokenize it, and then it doesn't really.
That seems like a legal nightmare, but okay.
That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But I think if you have the complete infrastructure set, that there's a lot of interesting use cases that you can do.
Fair enough, Matthieu.
Yeah, also about the appetite that the market could have about security tokens and so on. We launched a couple of weeks ago a survey with our clients and in association with trade associations in France to test this appetite and to see if there was an appetite from the market, and if so, what were the advantages and the limits that they encountered in getting interested in security tokens and so on. And we received many feedbacks. We are still working on a global synthesis that we will present next month. So I hope it will help us better understand this appetite, this global appetite. The idea is really to also share this synthesis with regulators and legislators in Europe to show them that there is a real interest and that it makes sense to work on whether or not the law in Europe should be adapted to allow the use of security tokens on a broader scale than today.
Just one more comment. You asked before, or I said before, I think a regulated environment is important. I'm not saying a regulated environment is important because we are a regulated player and have all kind of licenses. This is the fact that with blockchain, you can basically eliminate all of the current players. You don't need banks, you don't need exchanges. Basically, everybody can create marketplaces. Yes. Will this happen? I don't think so. But what happened at the ICO space, you mentioned it before.
Wait. You can't. Will it happen? I don't think so. Let's unpack that for a sec. So what's not going to happen? What do you think will happen?
What I think did happen and what will or what should not happen is what you mentioned before in the ICO space. ICOs, utility tokens, are a great thing. But what happened? The scamming that happened ruined the complete industry, and it led to the fact that a lot of cool projects didn't get the financing they deserved because other people were exploiting this because we did not have a proper regulatory environment around it. And I really hope that in the security token space we will have exactly this, and this is why I think we should have the regulated the environment around it, not because we are institutional players. That's
to basically protect the investor side of things.
Investor protection, yes.
Yeah, that's very important. To me, yeah, I mean, investor protection. Céline, do you have any points on that?
No, I think we need regulation, of course. So it could be European regulation, could be the best solution, of course, if you want to do an STO, or if you want just to invest in crypto. But at this time, I think France could be a best place because they want to do that. But at this time, I think you have. With regulation, you have maybe Switzerland could be an option. Of course, you have Malta, but I agree with you. I think it's okay for private investor. If you want to use public investors and institution could be more complicated.
What about custodianship? I mean, is it going to be self-custody? I mean, how's that going to work? Anyone have a point of view on that?
For?
Custodianship. Custody. $1 million question.
I think it's not very secure for client to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Omri.
As a lawyer, because you have problem of regulation, problem of compliance, but you have also to be very secure, and for sure, it's not a good place to do that.
Okay. Omri.
Yeah, I would just say from a technology point of view, right? Having private key is a single point of failure. We've seen some MPCs that's been around for a while, and they try to offer some solution to prevent that, technological. It's still in early stages, but I think shows a lot of promise in recovery. But we're very early, but I think it's necessary, and I think it's part of mass adoption. So.
I want to compliment on that. Basically, what we see from our offerings, 99% of the users, they do not care about self-custody. They trust a party, they trust a bank, they trust an exchange, they trust somebody with a trusted brand. We give the people the opportunity to do self-custody, and 99% of the people, they don't do it.
And they have to find an ecosystem. They want to find an ecosystem. So it could be in France, it could be in Europe, it could be in Malta, but it's impossible to find an ecosystem with blockchain and crypto and technological everywhere.
It's not going to be Britain anytime soon, I can tell you that much. Anyway, I'll not go down that road. Pascal.
Yeah, I mean, for the custody part, clearly what's on the blockchain is on the blockchain, and it's demonstrated for a long time that this is not something which is going to be, falsified or broken down. I mean, this is just amazing what the level of security you can find in public blockchains today. It's never been seen before. The question is really how do you get in and out of the blockchain, right? And this is really that, and the fact that you have no one to call, right? You lose your public key or your private key, and that's it. It's done. There's more and more technology coming for that, so I know it's still really strange to do it. I mean, even for people like me who've been on it for the longest time, when you start moving some real sum of money through public blockchain, it's always a little something. But in the end, it's also a question of just getting used to it, right? I mean, the same way we did the first payment on the internet, and it was a little strange to put your credit card there and wondering. Now everybody's doing it without even thinking. We're just going to follow the same way.
We're almost out of time, so I'd like a couple of takeaways from the panelists. Where you, I'm asking you the inevitable task of predicting the future, but let's have a go. So, where do you see this all going? We'll start with you, Omri.
With me? Oh, so I'll steal a second just to reply to what was said just before, which I think
briefly, please.
Reconciliation combined with some of the transparency of blockchain can offer people a lot of transparency even without owning the assets. For example, if you're a client of a big, I don't want to mention an organization, a big organization, and you can see that they all this money, and this is audited by a top firm, and at the same time you can see the assets on the blockchain, can keep you comfortable. Back to the takeout.
Please,
tokenized assets is the real big thing.
Give me 10 seconds each of where you think this may go, because that's literally the time we have. So, Céline, we'll start with you.
Oh, I think it will be more and more easy to do that. As a lawyer, for the legal part, I hope it will be a European. We will have a European solution. So I think as a lawyer we have to work on it, and we have to discuss with regulators and to find solution for clients. So no, I'm confident, but we need to find a European solution, of course.
Thank you very much, Pascal.
Tokenization is completely unavoidable. It's coming. It's going to be here. It's going to change the world to a point we don't even understand today. It's going to take time. Don't expect it tomorrow or next week or next year. It's going to take time, but it's one of the...
Any idea how much time? I mean, again, I know it's a very loaded question, but
it's really hard, right? But again, we're talking about migrating large ecosystem toward new solutions. And if you look at the past, the time it takes, it's not a couple of months, right? It's we in years, and we have to be ready for the long run.
Do you?
Yeah, I would say that there are many opportunities that are really linked to tokenization and the use of security tokens instead of traditional securities. And I'm quite convinced that soon investors and clients will expect this to get the benefit of these advantages. So I think that there will be a clear merit to all institutions which will start to work on this project. I agree that it's going to take time, but the sooner like the financial market players start to work on this, the earlier they will be ready to offer disadvantages to their clients. And I think it's a good thing. And it's already possible now.
Thank you.
In certain jurisdictions.
We're currently at the stage of where we were with Netscape in the 90s, maybe even a little bit before. But I think if we manage to make blockchain available in the way we made the internet available, then I think in the next 2-3 years it's going to be brilliant.
Great. Thank you very much to my fantastic, auspicious panel. Thank you, everyone.